Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the EDIP Experience. I'm your guest host today, Dr. Lori Shanderson, and I am taking some time away from the EDIP Experience Accreditation Insights, where we talk about accreditation, to come over here and help my fellas out today with this podcast. And we're so excited because we have today as a guest, Dan Futrell, and he's the founder of Polymath University. So I'm excited to learn more about Polymath. But Dan is a prominent figure known for his impactful work in education reform. So I am super excited to meet you, Dan. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me so much.
Well, before we get started, tell us a little bit about Polymath University and the inspiration behind its inception.
Are you going to miss Ellucian Live this year?
I don't think so.
Exactly. So you might as well register right now at elive.ellucian.com. Ellucian Live 2025, April 6th through 9th in Orlando, Florida. Do not miss it.
Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content, invites to special events, and more? Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Do you want to get all this while helping to sustain EDUP? Then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and become a subscriber today.
Sure. Polymath University is a new nonprofit institution that is interdisciplinary, apprenticeship-based, and debt-free. For us, we see macro trends in higher education, and we see a lot of people asking whether higher education is even worth it. Our answer to that question is a resounding yes, but we see an old model that doesn't work as much anymore. In our view, legacy higher education is built on an educational model from the 1880s and a business model of the 1950s. Our model is designed from the ground up to be more accessible to students and to better prepare students for the workforce in the world. And we do this in two ways. Our unique pedagogy is based on the work of Dr. David Staley. He's a professor at Ohio State and is on our advisory board. He wrote a book called Alternative Universities, Speculative Design for Innovation in Higher Education. And at Polymath University, we are pursuing his academic model where students will pursue three non-adjacent majors to build themselves as polymaths. A polymath being defined as having breadth, depth, and integration across disciplines. You can kind of really think about this as a reimagination of our liberal arts degree, but with a little bit more depth. And then from the business model perspective, we describe our model best as ROTC for the private sector. Over the course of, go ahead.
No, finish, please.
Over the course of 3 years, a 3-year academic program towards a bachelor's degree, our students in their second and third year will work as apprentices with employer partners. And through this model, they're not only is their education covered, but they have an obligation to their employer, just like somebody might have going through ROTC as I did. And on the employer side, we help to fill high vacancy, high demand roles that aren't currently being filled by higher ed.
You also said something that caught my attention. You said debt free.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, there are about 1.2 million apprenticeships in the country right now, about half of those registered with the Department of Labor. And the model out there at companies, I'm based just outside of Chicago, at companies like Aon and Zurich and United and elsewhere. The model is that students will serve as apprentices and start at a company like Aon, will start and earn $42,000 a year, working between 25 and 28 hours a week for Aon. They then go on in the other hours during the week and earn their associate's degree at Harold Washington here in Chicago, and that's covered by Aon. And from Aon's side, from a business decision perspective, they're getting new talent into their ecosystem that otherwise wouldn't have had a chance to get those kind of jobs. Our model is the same financially, in that our students will work as apprentices with employer partners. One, I think a lot of listeners will know, you'll likely know that apprentices, one of the key features of apprentices, not only is that they get paid for their work, which sometimes you are or not as an intern, but that base pay increases over time, reflecting the value that you have to offer as you build your education. Our model is the same, where our tuition is about $9,500 per student per year for 3 years. And we're asking employers to support that to build a talent pipeline that they otherwise would not have had. And again, I grew up in a single parent household. My dad worked in a factory for 50 years. Before that, dropped out of high school and got a GED. And, he always told me that education was the way to open doors. And for me, ROTC, an Army ROTC scholarship, helped me to go to college. We're trying to build that opportunity outside of the military context, if that makes sense.
Then tell me, before I get into the other questions, because I have so many, I'm super excited. How big is Polymath? Where is Polymath? And when did you open your door to your first student?
Yeah, great question. We're very early stage, right? So we'll accept our first students this April. So we don't have students yet. We've been building this over the last 2 years. And our first students will join us in April this year in standalone, remotely delivered courses. This fall, we'll have a master's level certificate program that we're calling a Polymath Fellowship. And we're in the process right now of building our cohort. It is very interdisciplinary. There are 6 courses associated with it, including systems thinking and human-centered design and knowledge translation and leadership through inquiry and accelerating impact with technology. These courses and that master's level certificate program starts this fall. The bachelor's degree, kind of the big vision that we're building towards, we're looking to launch that in 2028. And between now and then, likely next year, we're looking to launch an apprenticeship program.
Now, you mentioned you're doing some of these courses, distance said you mentioned certificates. Tell us more about the curriculum. And you did mention how it caters to employers, but how does it cater to students' evolving needs? And here I'm thinking about those wraparound services that everyone is thinking or is saying are so important right now relative to a student's success.
Yeah. There's a couple things there. First of all, we're based right outside of Chicago.
Okay.
And when we talk about the bachelor's program that we're building, a couple things matter, right? So, as I started, there's 2 challenges in higher ed that we're trying to address. One is around accessibility of higher education, and one is around the effectiveness of higher education. I'll say there are, at any given moment, there's about 30 million 18 to 24-year-olds in the country, of which about 7.5 million are enrolled in school. And so there's a lot of discussion lately about the demographic cliff and accessibility of college, when higher ed is really only serving less than 25% of that traditional college-age student. For us, the apprenticeship model, which offers applied learning in a way that, just sitting in the classroom cannot, we think will draw a lot of folks. And then the debt-free part of that and route to a career, I think will draw in a lot of folks that otherwise might say, hey, maybe college isn't for me. Maybe I don't want to sit in a classroom for 4 years. There's that piece of it. As I mentioned, we're in Chicago. Our first cohort we're looking to build is 100 students here in Chicago. And so while our courses are delivered mostly remotely, what that means is one week per semester in person, the rest in front of a laptop like we are right now, but to 100 students in Chicago. So everybody is a bus or a train ride away from each other and can build a social and professional network that we know not only leads to retention and graduation, but follows on to professional success.
You also mentioned another very attractive piece of the puzzle here. I thought I heard you say 3-year bachelor degree.
I did say that. If we're looking for knocks on our model here, that does mean that people are giving up some summers. But it is a full year-round program, 120 credits from start to finish. And, that maps a little bit more closely to, a professional calendar. And the other piece, that some folks might find interesting about our, so much energy goes into, discussion of the calendar in the higher ed space. Like, how does the calendar look? When does it start? How does it serve faculty and students and whatnot? We'll be serving our courses in 8-week blocks.
Okay.
And so, a traditional number of hours, but a little bit more condensed than normal.
That's interesting because I thought you were going to say that you have maybe 90 credits or less. And those are being approved.
Yeah, they are being approved.
But you're still 120 credits and 3 years. So it sounds pretty aggressive.
Yeah, it's when you look at taking those extra 2 semesters and spreading them out over what amounts to 3 summers, right? It actually is not any more aggressive. We simply have just taken out the from a calendar perspective, you might call that dead time. So we've rearranged that a little bit. But the other piece too, and why we haven't pursued a 90 credit bachelor's program, is because being a polymath and having the skills to solve complex problems in a really interdisciplinary way is about breadth, depth, and integration, right? So breadth of knowledge, depth of knowledge, that's kind of forced in our model by our students pursuing 3 non-adjacent majors. The really important key that kind of unlocks the whole thing is the integration piece. And we're not going to be able to deliver that if we kind of shortchange the depth, right? If we try to build it towards 90 credits, and we give, instead of giving people, 11, 12, 13 courses in a major, we start cutting that down, they're not going to get the depth that they're going to need to be able to connect the dots across disciplines.
It sounds like you're really focused on ensuring that the students are going to be successful, of course, in the workplace, because they're going to have critical thinking skills and analytical thinking skills, and an emphasis on those things as the core, I guess.
Absolutely.
They're being able to be successful. So what ways do you believe Polymath University influences or reshapes the landscape of higher education? Because this is different. This is a different model.
Yeah, it's a different model. I think it's a big statement to say, in what ways do we reshape the landscape of higher ed? We haven't maybe earned that statement yet. But what I will say is, the model of legacy higher education, where about 44% of tuition is spent on instruction. 44% of tuition is spent on instruction. The rest is, a significant amount is spent on facilities, on athletics, on research, and other things that are really brand building activities for traditional universities. We've kind of come at that from a different direction and said, hey, let's make instruction first and foremost what our professors are there for. And so, we're in the middle of hiring faculty right now. A lot of people have asked me, like, well, who are the kind of faculty that might be different and might be right for Polymath that might not be right elsewhere? We're looking for faculty members who got into this work because they want to coach, teach, and mentor students, not because they want to attend a conference and present their research.
Right.
There is a good place for that. It's not us, but there are many, many good places for that, and that will continue to thrive elsewhere. For us, the way that we hope to serve people that aren't currently being served is by focusing first and foremost on that student experience. And the last thing I'll say on this point, I served for 6 years on a school board outside of Boston, and we had what grew into about a $75 million budget serving 5,000 students in a K-12 setting. And we often talked about our budget as a moral document, a budget as a reflection of our priorities. And when you look at the budgets of higher ed institutions right now, and you see that less than 50% is spent on instruction, we think it's the right question to say, okay, that's okay. We don't need to offer judgment on that, but it looks like instruction is not the number one thing here. And so ideally, we're looking for folks, both students and faculty members, who really want to focus on that student experience and those learning outcomes.
Yeah, I think you'll find many that are interested because they are tired of the old model. And they want to be impactful, and they want to make a difference in the lives of the students that they teach, and they want the students to have better outcomes in the long run. Which brings me to my question about collaborations and partnerships. I mean, what you are describing, I can't see it working unless you have good partnerships and collaborations lined up for these students in terms of opportunities, apprenticeships. Can you tell us more about those?
At Lucian Live 2025, we're going to explore the magic of innovation. We want to imagine, believe, and achieve. It's happening April 6th through 9th, 2025 in Orlando, Florida, and we're going to explore technology, modernization, and
artificial intelligence.
Explore the latest technology solutions, discover industry insights, and make valuable connections as a global community. It's time to register for Lucian Live 2025 at elive.lucian.com.
Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content? That's right, original content, invites to special events, and more? Do you want to get all this while helping to sustain EdUp? then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and subscribe today.
Yeah, Ken. So we're at the early stages the short answer is we're at the early stages of building those partnerships. So I have no company to name for you to say here's a lead partner that we're going with. We're in the process of building that. And you rightly point out that those partnerships are critical to our success, to the success of this model. Our bet here that we're making is that, when we go out in the world and we see that 89% of employers report that their recent grads straight out of college were not prepared for their jobs. When you see that 55% of new college graduates leave their first job in the first 12 months, we think, and we're already having very productive conversations, we think we're going to find really good partners who say, hey, I bet we can do better. Let's try something different. The last thing I'll say on this too is, I want to be careful. Our model is implicitly, we're trying to innovate here on a legacy model of higher education. And I don't want to make the mistake of calling everybody in higher education the enemy. That is not the truth. In fact, we believe that there are some structural issues that need to be resolved. And we see in pockets around the country, people really trying, presidents and other administrators trying very hard to resolve those challenges. To the point of partnerships, you haven't asked about accreditation yet, but we can go there. We can go. So there is an accreditation piece here that, as that can take 9 or 10 years for us to see independent accreditation. In that interim time until we get there, we do envision a partnership with an existing university who might like to try something different, and who doesn't see our model as cannibalistic of their enrollment, which of course can't be true.
So many things you talked about, and trust me, the accreditation piece was not lost on me. I just know that is a bigger conversation. And I wanted to ask you a little bit of a follow-up when we talk about the partnership piece. So these partnerships, because they're going to provide apprenticeships for the students, they're going to have to be very much involved in the curriculum design, I would assume, or at least serving in some terms of an advisory board so that the students are being taught what it is that would make them valuable to these partners, these future employers. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're going to work that piece out?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. So the way that we've come at this question around apprenticeships, which again, that puzzle has to fit exactly right into our model for this whole thing to work. The way we've come at it is we've said, all right, what roles are out there right now with a high level of vacancies that employers are really struggling to find? For some of them, as we know in 2025, organizations are looking at artificial intelligence. Hey, we can't find the talent that we want. Can technology help us fill the gap? In some cases, the answer is yes. In some cases, the answer is not yet, or no, right? Where they need a different kind of human judgment. But there are roles around information security, around health services administration, around data analysis, where companies are just struggling to find the right people. For us, en route to a bachelor's degree, we need to make sure that our students are well prepared to earn an industry-recognized certification. And because we're starting the apprenticeship before we start the bachelor's program, so the apprenticeship we're looking to launch in 2026, that really is going to be, working towards an industry-recognized certification, so that you can take somebody from 0 to 20 and get them in the door into an entry-level role, and they could continue to learn from there. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel on that one. Let's work towards certifications that already exist and that companies already recognize.
I really like your approach, and I'm hearing institutions really considering their approach to having students have a faster trajectory towards gainful employment, work that really changes their lives, that doesn't, do what it says it's going to do for them. And I just appreciate this approach so much, and I recognize the importance of those partnerships. I wanted to say that your approach to educating the student, I think, is impressive, because without those foundational skills, students are limited. And to your point, they get into positions where they're not successful or they don't like the positions. I think that your emphasis on those foundational pieces makes for a better outcome, because if the student doesn't enjoy maybe the area that they intended to focus on, they have transferable skills now by virtue of all of the other things that you taught them to be able to be valuable in another type of capacity. I think having those tangible skills, liberal artsy, you mentioned just in terms of having the foundation, I think is critically important, because you can give somebody the extra pieces if they're teachable. You can expose them to things if they can critically think and they can analyze and they can synthesize information. There are many opportunities, but without that, you're kind of lost.
100% agree with you. I think that's totally right. And the science backs this up. There was a study that was done, I believe about 5 years ago, that looked at folks who studied that double majored in college or even studied more topics. And what they found is, and this is, when I say it out loud, it's like, oh yeah, that makes a ton of sense. People who got double or more majors, 3 majors, had more economic resilience over time, less likely to be laid off, less time unemployed. Their income rose faster than others. It kind of makes sense, right? If I have 1 or 2 different topic areas to fall back on, I'm going to be more economically resilient. The other thing I'll say too is, our whole model about being interdisciplinary, about our students pursuing 3 non-adjacent majors, is built on this science that shows that when people build that breadth and that depth, they're better able to solve ambiguous problems, wicked problems, problems that are rather complex and dynamic. The factors of the problems change over time. This whole thing that we're doing here is a big flag in the ground that says, we believe that skill of connecting the dots, of approaching a problem from an interdisciplinary manner, is going to be much more valuable now and for the next 10 years than it was in the last 10 years, because knowledge is so readily accessible. The primary skill is not what do you know, but it's how can you take something you know and put it together in a novel way to solve the unique problem that's in front of you right now. And we think employers will see that.
I love that. So looking forward, what do you think the biggest challenges and opportunities Polymath U is going to face?
Yeah. Well, nobody knows about us yet. So, we have to get our name out there. We have people who've signed up for our courses starting in April and June. Folks can go to polymathu.org to check it out. We have folks that have been selected for our master's level certificate program that starts in the fall. But, just like universities that are, quite large, they focus on enrollment all the time. We're also focused on enrollment and just at the very first stage. So we're doing the work right now to try to build awareness of this model, of what we're building. We have somebody else who's been on the EdUp podcast before, Dr. Brian Rosenberg, is our senior advisor, 17-year college president at McAllister, professor at Harvard, and author of the book, Whatever It Is, I'm Against It. Resistance to Change in Higher Ed, I believe. He's been kind of in our ears and helping guide us he carries that kind of industry level knowledge that others on our team don't have. So, our work right now is getting out there for employers and for students, and that will continue to be our job, and that's what we want to do.
Well, I truly have appreciated having you on the podcast, and trust me, shameless plug, I intend to host you on the Accreditation Insights podcast, where we are going to dive into your accreditation process as a new institution and what that entailed and the things that you're looking forward to doing as it relates to accreditation, especially in this changing accreditation landscape. But nevertheless, as we wrap up, I have one final question for you. I'd like to know how your journey in creating and leading Polymath University changed your views on education and leadership.
I appreciate that question. I started this journey not thinking, hey, we should start a new university. That was not the origin here. I started this journey with the thought that, hey, I think I want to work in higher ed. I was leading a national nonprofit here in Chicago, offering scholarships to veterans and military spouses. And that sent me into the rabbit hole of read everything I can about higher ed. And it's been really, really interesting, the reactions that I get from people when I say, hey, we're trying to build a new university, because most people think about, I went to Gonzaga for undergrad, got a master's degree at Harvard, and people think about schools like that, like,
right,
liberal schools, kind of larger school. And It's like, no.
Established for a very long time. I think
Yes.
it's a little scary for people.
Ellucian Live is taking place April 6th through 9th, 2025 in Orlando, Florida.
You just made the list!
Get ready for an unforgettable experience at Ellucian Live 2025. Join visionary leaders from institutions worldwide as we dive into groundbreaking ideas, cutting-edge solutions, and transformative best practices that will ignite your passion for innovation. This is your chance to connect, collaborate, and propel your institution into the future. Do not miss out.
Let's go!
Do you want to get invites to special events? Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes episodes, and original content? Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Well, you can go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and become a subscriber today.
That's right. And it's just like, no. Like, that's not what we're building. And we're probably not competing with those kind of folks. Like, this is something different. We are building education. And if you dial it down a little bit and say, hey, we want to serve people who want to learn, period. That doesn't have to be hard. And so people we have this cultural mindset that this is a hill too high to climb. We do not at Polymath University. And so the thing that's opened my eyes is, hey, and maybe this, I served for 5 years in the Army as an infantryman, and, I've done, a little bit before that. Nothing is too hard. I don't know what that means, right? Let's break it down into little pieces. And, the task list might be a little bit harder, a little bit longer, rather, to start a university, but it's just a task list. Let's just keep checking the things out the box, make sure we get students and build something that's built on evidence. And we believe that this will be successful. And so far, we're getting really good response.
Dan, thank you so much for spending this time with us today. And I know that your students are going to be in good hands because your problem-solving skills and your can-do attitude, and thank you for your service, by the way. But that speaks volumes because you don't have a bureaucratic approach to the operational aspects of this endeavor that you're taking on. And it is exciting. And I don't think many of us expect the same type of academic institution to thrive in the future. Everyone needs to innovate. And I think we're comfortable with new. The old and established is fine, but I think we're comfortable with seeing shifts and new things, and everyone's on board for that. So I wish you a lot of success with Polymath U. And I know, just to everyone out there, we're going to have Dan back on the Accreditation Insights podcast where we talk about anything and everything related to accreditation. But congratulations on Polymath University. And tell us again how anyone can find out about Polymath.
Yeah, please, folks, go to polymathu.org. And we've got, the listing of our team and our programs and different ways to get to know us and reach out to us is on there at polymathu.org.
Thank you. And there you've had it. Everyone, you've been up again with your guest host today, Dr. Laurie Shanderson and Dan Futrell of Polymath University. If you are interested in higher education, and I mean anything and everything that has to do with higher education, you need to find the EdUp Experience podcast because you are going to be pleasantly surprised with all of the information, the awesome hosts of all these podcasts, and we just do our thing over there. So join us wherever you find podcasts. Thank you, everyone, for sticking in there with us for another episode. We'll see you soon.